We don't pass the baton. We carry it all the way from the beginning of our relationship with our client to the end, right? We don't miss anything. We know what happened in that birth, so we can talk to a medical provider and say, hey, did anyone consider this? Because we have a list of everything that happened, from their pregnancy, from their labor and delivery, in their postpartum, in their homes. We're aware. So we work as guides.
Welcome to Close Up Radio, where our hosts, Doug Llewellyn and Jim Masters, bring you the amazing stories of people who answered the call to unlock their potential and taken control of their own success with authenticity, creativity, persistence, and resilience. Close Up Radio special guests share their knowledge and wisdom so you, the listener, can live the most empowered life possible. Close Up Radio. And now, here's today's host, Jim Masters.
And we thank you very much for joining us, everybody. We're live worldwide on the award-winning Close-Up Radio. It's a pleasure to have you with us today. It's also a pleasure to welcome a brand new guest to our show. I'm very excited. Toni Curtis of BirthWise Doula Services joining us. Toni is a seasoned and certified birth doula and childbirth educator. But what is even more significant than her credentials is her history of accomplishments in this segment of maternal health care and her groundbreaking work in bridging the gap of racial and socioeconomic disparities in the maternal health care system. Toni has been a practicing birth worker for nearly 25 years, and she's attended over 400 births. She's also known for providing extraordinary, memorable, and personalized care to every mother, baby, and family she's served. Doulas also form a bond with the mother and family, and that begins with the decision to have a child. And then that lasts for years after a successful birth. It's a long-term plan of care that actually takes many factors into account, from the home environment to the mother's learning style and also the mother's physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual health. The doula and mother explore many key life areas together and formulate answers to important questions. This usually entails a longer consultative session that really most doctors, would even think of allotting time for. A lot of them won't. The doula, childbirth educator, also discusses the vital importance of diet and nutrition, local support resources, and other variables that can really affect the pregnancy, the birth, and afterwards, from lactation and postpartum recovery to medical conditions that may arise as a result of labor and delivery. She says pregnancy is the beginning of change. This new life changes everything. Your home situation, your physical body, your brain chemistry, everything you do and feel going forward is going to be a new experience. She says we talk about this process thoroughly, candidly, and truthfully. We're very excited to welcome here to learn more about this topic and also have an opportunity for you to connect with Toni and the team at BirthWise Doula Services. She joins us today live from Charlotte, North Carolina. Toni, welcome to Close Up Radio. It's a real pleasure to have you with us today. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Jim. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. Very excited about what you're doing. I think it's incredible work. Let's learn about, if we can, the background. We welcome you, and we're very happy to learn about all you are and all you do. Just what is, for the purposes of our audience who may or may not be aware, what is a doula and how long have you been one, and what makes the doula's role different from that of what you hear described as a midwife?
Right. Well, the interesting thing is that in my community, doula wasn't the common term, a support person or peer educator, but a doula is a physical, emotional support person that comes alongside you during the maternal health period and your family. And so when I started, I was called a peer educator, and I would come in and I would teach safe sex practices to teenagers, and then when you go looking for that type of education, you end up finding pregnant teens. And I started taking them to health clinics and their doctor's appointments and being there with them for their births and coming home with them with their new babies and helping them take care of them. that's where I started.
That's terrific. What was it about it? You know, we all have our own inspirational journey. We all have things that point us in the direction of doing work and things that we love that really speak to the essence and heart of who we are. What is it about this particular work that really speaks to you? What are some of the things in your own life's journey that inspired you to want to do this kind of work that's very beautiful and very life-affirming?
Well, there were a couple of really big things that happened to me early on in this journey. I lost my baby brother when he was 6 months old, and it changed my understanding of what can happen when you have a baby. And then I went on to support teen mothers, but when I decided I wanted a family, I was diagnosed with infertility. So I was diagnosed when I was 16 with PCOS, and I spent essentially almost 20 years trying to figure out how to heal my body because the medical professionals, they didn't have the answer. So I ended up really diving into this, not realizing that this would turn into my passion and my calling to teach and educate others so that they can have healthy, wonderful, beautiful birth experiences.
It's so incredibly important. It really is. And it's a beautiful reason to do the extraordinary work that you do, Toni. I know you're very humble about it, but it's really incredible. What differentiates what you do? I mentioned a little bit of it in the introduction, but what, from your perspective, differentiates what you do from most doctors? I mean, I think that the fact that the baby is the main patient is one thing, and you use those certain techniques and methods during labor and childbirth.
Absolutely. So one of the big things is that I am not a medical care provider. I don't do medical practice, meaning I don't check blood pressure and do lab work and all of those things. That is the medical community down to either what we would call catching the baby or delivering the baby. I don't do any of those things. However, I make sure that you know how to work with your body in order to facilitate safe birth, safe pregnancy, safe postpartum. There are huge changes happening in the body that go greatly missed by the medical community, either from time standpoint or they just haven't figured out that it's every bit as important. So I come alongside you as a professional support person for your lactation, for your childbirth education, for your nutrition, for your physical health, for your entire recovery.
So the support system, right? Because so many times it's such an emotional experience for everybody involved, and especially the mother, and you're at times, that support is so invaluable. Now, do you fear that certain decisions about mothers and babies are wrongly based on race? And if so, what would you do to change that? I know that from doing the research, you do volunteer advocacy work, which I think is fantastic, and you've been recognized for those efforts along the way as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, bias plays a big part in maternal health, primarily that the traditional work, I'm also a body worker. I work symbiotically with the body to relate it to physical movement as well as emotional state to help facilitate birth. So we know that we are failing in this area because we have a clear report that says 1 in 3 mothers are experiencing trauma in birth. Then we turn around and then we look at the bias against particularly Black people. They're dying at a much greater rate. And there's a lot of things that go into that. Even when considering treatment for pregnancy, one of the considerations is race. It's one of the main line items. So before you even look at a person's health profile, you look at their race and you put them into a category. And so the treatments being prescribed from there forward may not be accurate or even needed for that person because you did it based off of their race. That's one of the biggest biases that we have, and we know from evidence that it is causing great harm.
I'm glad that you're bringing it to the forefront and discussing it, because there might be a lot of people who aren't even aware of that being the case. So kudos to you for, being on the forefront. how long does the relationship with that patient last? Is it true that you've assisted some women you've brought into this world over 20 years ago with the birth of their own children? It becomes sort of a generational situation, right?
Absolutely. I've done this long enough now that I have seen the children that I was there for their birth. They're having children, and I'm like, oh my goodness. We
Yes.
kind of come full circle, and I still
Yes.
get those phone calls for those. For the doula and for the relationship we have, it goes far beyond just, I'm no longer doing the work of supporting them during their pregnancy, but they still come back. They want us involved. We become a part of their family and a part of their community. And so I get updates on the children. I get updates on the moms and the entire family for as long as they're willing to keep in touch with me. So.
It's amazing, too. That is a testament to you because if you think about it, if this relationship is there and you end up, facilitating the same sort of relationship with their child, that means that there's a safety net there, there's a trust, there's a respect. They trust you, and trust you with one of the most important things that's going to happen in their life and with this life that's coming. That must really make you feel, wonderful that they trust you in that way.
It's amazing. When I look at this over all of the years that I've done it, I'm just thoroughly amazed at the success of my clients and where they've come from. I started with teen moms, and they already come with a level of disadvantage from perception. Whether or not they're disadvantaged is a perception, and I've seen them go on to raise their children, and the children thrive and be very successful. And then I've seen the inverse, which is the sad side and of them not getting the treatment they needed and not having the support and losing them. So I've seen this from a number of areas over my life as a support person, as a doula. And so I think birth workers are just really, people don't realize we're around. And birth work comes in many forms, including the doula, but we have a collaborative effort to protect physiological birth and the practices that protect life.
I know that you've said that pregnancy is a life process and not a medical process. Maybe we can explore that concept further. Tell us about that.
Well, a couple of things. When we are approaching birth, this is going to require a mind that is calm, relaxed, in order for the process to flow well. You need physical movement. When you recover, you need nutrition, physical movement. All of these things become an incorporated event. So what you learn during your pregnancy, you use during your labor, and then you use during your postpartum, you use it to raise your children. Creating a strong foundation, let's just say, in one of the areas of focus of nutrition and lactation, something that I focus on heavily. Being able to teach someone, we get better birth outcomes, smarter children, healthier moms, lower rates of postpartum mood disorders. All of that started with making sure that we line up the body and the mind and the experience to be a positive, fulfilling one, leading to healthier families and healthier children over a lifespan.
That's the bottom line, exactly. What are the physiological birth practices, and how does the use of such practices by doulas sort of complement or contrast with the typical accepted modern practices?
Well, the interesting thing about that is that modern medicine is now catching up to traditional healing. So modern medicine ruled out physiological birth practices a long time ago as a very negative thing. When my grandmothers would have been delivering babies as midwives, they would have called the traditions voodoo or negative or all of these other things unnecessary. But we know that if you actually prepare the body and the mind for birth, you have better outcomes. Now we can show you with anatomy, diagrams, and science to back it up. But these are old traditions. These are not new. They're just now being scientifically explained with orthobionomy, which is one of the categories of body work, massage therapy, chiropractic, all of these non-modern medicine-related industries are now showing the proof that we can get babies and mothers through pregnancy, through labor and delivery, and into postpartum in a much safer, healthier way with far less trauma. We can move the body into alignment to allow for birth. We have organizations like Spinning Babies, which I'm an aware practitioner and a Spinning Babies parent educator, because it teaches body mechanics for birth. It is body awareness. That is the alignment of the mind and the body in order to give birth. So that's a lot, but that is what it is.
Yeah, that's very important for people to realize. And again, it's something that's essential to all of this. What is one thing you think that in this process? What are some myths maybe to it? Some things that people aren't aware of, or they have misconceptions on with all of it?
Well, physical movement is required during birth. A lot of people go into birth fearful, afraid, and they don't want to move and they don't want to incorporate some of these things because they're being told by professionals that it doesn't matter when we know that it does. When we look at it scientifically and statistically, we know that early epidurals have higher rate of cesarean, almost 50%. So when you get up and you let gravity do its work and we show you how to open your pelvis in order for a baby to come down and then change position, for a baby to go through another section of your pelvis and then to make their way out, and then you have very little trauma and tearing, it is like an epiphany. It's like, why didn't someone tell me this? How is it that we have missed this for so long? And it has to do with, it doesn't seem important in the moment because we're so focused on the birth. As long as the baby comes out, it's okay.
Right. Right. And there's so many variables. You really have to keep up on all this, right? For you're always learning and you're always finding out the latest and incorporating all of that, right?
Absolutely. I am always alongside my colleagues and other professionals, learning, educating myself. I go with many of the organizations that people may not be as familiar with in order to make sure that I'm up to date on the latest science in regards to postpartum mood disorders or mood disorders in general. I am a licensed community health worker with the state of North Carolina, making sure that I know what the regulations are and what are the barriers to care. Continue on to make sure that I am keeping up in my lactation community as a lactation counselor to make sure that I am able to fully support, because these are the areas that we're failing in. We're talking about 8 to 24% of the population that wants to breastfeed have the ability. So what is happening in our communities that's preventing this? We have higher rates of postpartum mood disorders than other first world nations. What is causing this? What is happening? Where are we missing it? We have a relationship with nutrition, and then we have a community that may not have access or understanding of nutrition. All of these things come together. And so I have to constantly educate myself, and I do mean constantly.
Yes, right? Yes. A coach is always coached, right? Exactly. It's that kind of mindset. What is the maternal health crisis, and how are doulas helping to address that problem, Toni?
Well, one of the big things is that doulas have high rates of success. If you have a doula, evidence shows with clear indication that you are more likely to have a vaginal birth. The maternal health crisis is surrounding the loss of life of Black people in this country. Both the babies and the mothers are dying at a much greater rate. But all in all, women are dying at a much greater rate in this country than other first world nations. On top of, we spend the most on pregnancy and maternal health over anyone else, and we have some of the worst outcomes. So now there is a big movement to say, hey, what is going on? How do we fix this? How do we turn this around? And they're coming back to those that have been practicing traditional birth practices, which are people like doulas that take into account all of the areas that the other communities may not have time to focus on. We don't pass the baton. We carry it all the way from the beginning of our relationship with our client to the end, right? We don't miss anything. We know what happened in that birth, so we can talk to a medical provider and say, hey, did anyone consider this? Because we have a list of everything that happened from their pregnancy, from their labor and delivery, in their postpartum, in their homes. We're aware. So we work as guides.
That's important. Again, you're there through it all, which is so important on so many different levels, I think. What are some of the things about doing this work that bring you great blessing and joy, Toni?
I absolutely love my clients. They are the most amazing people I've ever met. I am always inspired by them and their journey and overcoming their own obstacles and really facing just so many challenges. And I watch them rise to the occasion. I tell them all they have superpowers. I'm like, you have superpowers because this is amazing. And watching them achieve their goals, it's like, you can do it. And then they go out and they become advocates for others. And it's just amazing when people realize that this can be done well and this can be done safely and in a fulfilling way. And I watched them go on and blossom. It's amazing.
It is really incredible on so many different levels, I'm sure, for you, and very moving for you. What is the feedback you get from your clients? It's got to be incredible.
I love when I'm standing next to them after they give birth, and they're like, this can really happen. This happens like this. And I'm like, yes, it happens like this. Yeah. And they're just like, but I heard all these things, and I'm like, it's not true. It doesn't have to be like that. And then to go on and just the champion moments, just that champion spirit of look what I did today, and to appreciate themselves and to have someone that they can come and talk to. I absolutely just adore it. They always say, if it wasn't for you, and I always think if it wasn't for them, it is.
Right. Yeah. You're all getting something quite beautiful from the experience itself, which I think is fantastic, huh?
Absolutely. We're changing the conversation. The more people that experience positive birth and relationship to this life process, this decision that you made to bring a life into this world, the better the outcomes for everyone. People thrive and live in happiness, and that is kind of the goal. We have so many things that are burying us with stress and giving us chronic health conditions, and the list goes on. There's just this big spectrum. But the reality is that, hey, if we take a minute out to take care of ourselves, just what can happen?
And you are a testament to that, spending your time with your husband and 2 children, learning about different cultures, watching Japanese anime, and most recently taking roller skating classes. Kind of cool, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. I went back to roller skating. I was like, you remember when you were a kid and you used to just laugh?
Yes.
Yeah, I was like, I want to just laugh, and so myself and my daughter, we started roller skating together.
That's fantastic.
It's been amazing.
One of the key things, I think, also is that you're a certified birth doula and childbirth educator. That's important, right? You want to work with somebody who is certified and has the credentials.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that everyone should have proper training. So with doulas, we have a number of things. Usually if you get a seasoned doula, they may have a lot of letters behind their name that you've never even heard of. And that is just a testament to their training. We want doulas actually participating. If you're going to be a birth doula, doulas come on a spectrum. But birth in particular, we want you attending births. We want you learning. We want you in, if you're going to be an educator and a knowledge base, we want you knowledgeable. We want you reading and learning and being active in your doula community. And that's really important to understanding how all of this comes together, right? So I do believe in certification, but I also believe that there are other professional doula organizations that train really, really amazing doulas, but you cannot stop with just the first step, right? In no profession do you start with just the start and end at the first step. We want you to go further.
What's one thing that you'd love our listeners on Close Up Radio, Toni, to remember after this important conversation? I hope we get a chance to explore some more and maybe even hear some case studies, testimonials from folks who have experienced your incredible compassion and empathy and expertise. I think it's important also to spread, like you're doing, the understanding of the doula's role and the transformative experience that it inspires, right?
Absolutely. Well, there's so much that I want people to take away from this, but I want people to know that birth is a positive, transformative experience. It is not a fear-inducing, harmful experience. So let's change the conversation from all the trauma and finding ways to not be traumatized. And as far as, the wonderful things about my clients and the birth stories is we have started recording the birth stories, so they are available on YouTube to kind of watch the birth stories and listen to the testimonials of my clients and their experiences having a doula and even the obstacles that we face throughout their pregnancies.
It's amazing what you're doing, really. The other thing, too, is your wealth of knowledge and passion for this work has led you to become a mentor to doulas across the country.
Absolutely. I run a mentorship practice out of the BirthWise offices, as well as I've partnered with Donor International Impact Program to help mentor new doulas. We have predecessors that came before that created an amazing program, and I have had the joy of being the preceptor for now the second cohort that I'll be doing, and I absolutely love it and enjoy it, and I hope that more people come and at least spend some time talking to us doulas.
I love your
something interesting.
Your mantra: vision, inspiration, and equitable maternal health options for underserved communities. That's so important. The website, everybody, is birthwisedoulas.com. That's the word birth and then wise, W-I-S-E, and then doulas is spelled D-O-U-L-A-S, S as in Sam. birthwisedoulas.com. Toni, thank you very much for sharing this with us and being so open and real and authentic and compassionate during the conversation. You're really amazing what you do. We applaud what you do and hope we get a chance to, again, explore some more down the line. That would be a real pleasure. Hope you enjoy the time with me as much as I absolutely have with you.
Thank you so much, Jim. This was fun for me, actually. So I hope to speak to you again.
That would be an absolute pleasure. You take care. You be well. BirthWiseDoulas.com is the website. Toni Curtis of BirthWise Doula Services, our very special guest. This is your host, Jim Masters, thanking you for your time this time till next time, inviting you to stay right there. I'll be back momentarily. Another incredible guest right here on Close Up Radio. Till then, for all of us, have a great day. Thanks for listening, and bye for now.
You have been listening to a broadcast from Close Up Radio, a division of Close Up Television Incorporated. For more information about our show and to be considered for future broadcasts, please visit closeuptelevision.com. You may also learn about us on social media and listen to us on podcast and internet radio. Thank you for joining us, and we hope that you have an empowered and productive day.